Sup everyone, Thomas here, aka Restrooms Trainer, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So earlier this month, I made a poll asking you guys what video you want to see me make next, and in a landslide, you voted for me to rank all the tracks in Mario Kart World. Now I'm sure some of you remember last year when I ranked all the tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which remains my longest video to date. Though while it unfortunately didn't perform very well, the very next video, which happened to be about Mario Kart World, actually performed really well by this channel's standards, so hopefully this video does better. Let's start by laying everything out. Mario Kart World has a total of 30 tracks, not even a third of what 8 Deluxe had, so that alone should make things easier. As for how I'll be ranking them, the tracks will be ranked based on how much I enjoy driving on them. And importantly, due to the open world nature of Mario Kart World, this ranking takes into account both the standard versus race, as well as the track in free roam, since I absolutely loved the free roam mechanic. Importantly, I won't be taking intermissions into account, because even though I'm in the minority of players who actually like them, it's definitely going overkill. And in case anyone's curious, despite using a variety of characters and karts in the footage you're likely seeing, my go-to character kart combination that I used for this was Rosalina in the Aero outfit with the sports bike. Also, it's important to remember that this ranking is entirely my opinion, and you're free to disagree with it, as everyone has different opinions. Lastly, before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel out, as I'm hoping to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And if this video does well enough, say 100 likes, I'll look into doing rankings for some of the older Mario Kart games like 7 and Wii. But with all that said, let's get started. Number 30. Desert Hills. Out of all 30 tracks in Mario Kart World, I personally think that Desert Hills is the worst. It just feels kinda bland. Sure, the Oasis here is kinda cool, I suppose, but other than that, there really isn't anything here, in both races and free roam. Not saying it's a bad track, it's just kinda boring. Simple as that. Number 29. Wario's Galleon. Alright, so I already know that people aren't happy that this track is so low, so let me explain. The original Wario's Galleon was an underwater track, and if you've seen my 8 Deluxe ranking, then you'll know that I tend to not enjoy underwater tracks. But underwater racing isn't a thing here, instead being replaced with what's effectively jet skiing. Yet somehow, I think I actually dislike this even more, since from my experience, you have like no traction, making steering and especially drifting more annoying. Okay, well, admittedly, it's not too bad on more calm waters, but the waters in and around Wario's Galleon are noticeably rough, and it's these waters that tend to be a pain in the arse for me, and it's largely for that reason that I've never really liked racing on this track, and I might have even been in last place, were it not for the fact that it's decently fun in free roam. Number 28. Dandelion Depths. So Dandelion Depths isn't a bad track by any means. It's just kinda forgettable. It doesn't really have anything interesting going on with it. Nothing truly stood out to me. I suppose it's decent to explore in free roam, but that's about it. Number 27. Moo Moo Meadows. Right, so Moo Moo Meadows is a track whose enjoyment in this game is definitely fueled by nostalgia, seeing as it originates from Mario Kart Wii. Though it doesn't really feel the same, probably because they already had Moo Moo Meadows get a remake in the previous game. If they really wanted a farm track, they should have either brought back the admittedly not as good Moo Moo Farm, or made an original track. But that's beside the point. While Moo Moo Meadows is a decent track in both races and free roam, it just doesn't quite hold its own against most other tracks here. And if it wasn't for nostalgia, it might have been placed even lower. Number 26. DK Pass. This is probably the point where most tracks stop having noticeable flaws, and it becomes a case of some tracks just being better than others. And unfortunately, DK Pass just doesn't quite match a lot of the other tracks. It's a good track, I really like the whole ski resort thing it has going on, it's just that I like other tracks more. Number 25. Koopa Troopa Beach. Now this one might surprise you considering that this track is basically just a circle, but given what they had to work with, I think they did an amazing job in making it. Being the shortest track in the game, it's the only track to have 5 laps instead of 3, and I absolutely love the theming of this track, turning it into a raving beach party, which is such a cool idea. I also genuinely enjoyed driving around this track in free roam. I also like how they put the other Koopa Beach right next door, because despite the name here, it's actually Koopa Beach 2 from SNES, as opposed to the Koopa Troopa Beach from 64. But that's a rant I've already had in my DLC ideas video. Anyway, despite all they did right here, it's hard to escape the fact that this is still just a circle at its core. Number 24. Acorn Heights. So Acorn Heights is an interesting track, because it simultaneously feels different, yet also just like Wild Woods from 8 Deluxe. As in, I can't think of anything that one track has that the other doesn't, aside from anti-gravity. A large tree you can go inside, a small village, a gliding section, water at the base, but regardless, Acorn Heights, both in standard races as well as free roam, is probably best described as alright. It's not bad, it's just not great. Number 23. Boo Cinema. Alright, this is definitely gonna ruffle some feathers. I by no means dislike this track. I genuinely enjoy it a fair bit. The problem is that it feels too short. Like the section where you go into the screen is cool as hell, yet it lasts like 10 seconds. And the cinema itself isn't too much bigger, even in free roam. If the track itself was longer, and maybe had a bit more to it, I'm certain it would place much higher. Number 22. Mario Bros. Circuit. So if you see my ranking of 8 Deluxe, you might be a bit surprised to see this track so low down, especially since I was pretty transparent about liking simple circuit tracks, and this definitely qualifies as a simple circuit track. Trust me, I do enjoy this track, and if I was just ranking based on tracks, it would probably be higher, but because I'm taking free roam into account, it starts to fall a bit short. It's not bad, but when combined, I just think other tracks do one or both of these things better. Number 21. Choco Mountain. Choco Mountain is quite interesting, since while it's obviously a remake, it feels completely different from previous versions, and I'm genuinely impressed. I would not blame you for forgetting that this is in fact the same Choco Mountain from N64, or even the Booster Course Pass, turning it from a pretty generic mountain track to what I can best describe as a monster truck arena in track form. Hell, it's even shaped like a monster truck. Bet you didn't notice that. So while the track is pretty decent in both races and free roam, I do find the deep mud annoying at times. Wait, is it mud or chocolate? Anyway, good track, but not good enough to go any higher. Number 20. Faraway Oasis. I'm surprised it took this long to get the Safari themed track, but we finally got one in the form of Faraway Oasis. Now something I learned from the comments in my World DLC video is that this track was originally meant to be DK's Jungle Parkway from N64, And after finding that out, I thought about it and realised that Faraway Oasis literally has the exact same layout, just on a smaller scale and with a few minor tweaks. But aside from that, I really enjoyed this track for the most part. Not a huge fan of the river section, but there's an alternate path to skip most of it. The curved waterfall is cool though. So overall, a pretty decent track. Number 19. Wario Stadium. Now I was sure a lot of us were happy to see Wario Stadium finally get remade, since it was the only N64 track yet to return. And yet I couldn't help but be somewhat disappointed when I finally got the race on it. Not because the track's bad or anything, the track's great, but because it's only a fraction of what it originally was. The original N64 version was much longer, and I was kind of disappointed to see that the version in World is probably not even half its length, even less considering the scaled down nature of tracks in World. That being said, the track is still decent, but it's a blast to play in free roam, especially when you find your way to the roof. So while it's a little underwhelming, it's still alright. Number 18. Sky High Sunday. The fact that this track isn't last place is probably a shock to some of you, considering that when I made my 8 Deluxe ranking, I placed it dead last at 96th. Yet I said in that video that I was hopeful that the track would be improved in World. And well, did it improve? Well, how about we watch my reaction after I beat the track for the first time during my World playthrough on my other channel. Oh my god, that feels so much better. Okay, I can officially say this is an improvement. Good job, Nintendo, but turned a very mediocre track to say less mediocre. So yeah, safe to say that this version of the track is a big improvement over the 1 in 8 Deluxe, and the lack of anti-gravity is probably the biggest reason for it. Plus, it's fun to explore in free roam, doing all sorts of tricks and whatnot. So yeah, pretty good track. Number 17. Peach Beach. So Peach Beach is interesting, since it almost felt like an entirely new track. While the first lap is exactly what you'd expect, laps 2 and 3 are entirely different, taking place in expanded parts of the track that weren't there in the original. Now I'm admittedly unsure on whether I like or dislike this change, especially since lap 3 is pretty much entirely water. Though I will say that I absolutely love exploring this track in free roam. It's kind of like a small town in a way, which is pretty cool. So overall, I'd say it's a decent track. Number 16. Dry Bones Burnout. So Dry Bones Burnout. No one will deny that this is a pretty cool track, being A, surrounded by lava, and B, being themed around the Day of the Dead, which is cool as hell. And it's that theming that is definitely this track's biggest positive. Now the track itself is quite good, and it's decently fun to explore in free roam, though ultimately, this is simply a case of me preferring other tracks more. Number 15. Mario Circuit. Alright, so this track has some pros and some cons. As for the pros, this is basically the definition of a simple circuit track, which I've mentioned I like, combining Mario Circuit 1, 2 and 3 into effectively one track, and the area is decently fun to explore in free roam. But as for the cons, for starters, despite being called a circuit, this is not a closed circuit. This is point A to B, since Circuit 3 doesn't connect to Circuit 1, and this is the case in both Versus and Grand Prix mode. Secondly, the tracks are noticeably smaller. In fact, it was actually on Mario Circuit 3 when I initially realised that most, if not all, remake tracks were smaller in this game. Now that somewhat works when taking intermissions into account, but in a standard race, they feel too short, and Mario Circuit is definitely where it's most noticeable. As for my next issue with this track, where is Mario Circuit 4? You include 1, 2 and 3, but not 4. Why? Hell, adding Circuit 4 might honestly make the track stop feeling so short. And to those of you saying you would ruin the lap count, Rainbow Road has 4 laps, and DK Spaceball has even more than that, so they could definitely make it work here. But despite everything I've said here, I still love this track. Number 14. Dino Dino Jungle. So something you may not know about me is that when I was younger, I was obsessed with dinosaurs. Now obviously, most kids have their dinosaur phase, but considering that I was bestowed with the power known as being autistic, I definitely went overboard and had a lot of information stuck in my head, and I still remember a surprising amount of it. But I'm getting off topic. The point I'm trying to make is that dinosaurs kind of automatically equal awesome, even nowadays. And so naturally, I love Dino Dino Jungle, both in races and free roam. And I really like how they changed it from a generic jungle to basically Jurassic Park, which is really cool. Though once again, this is simply a case of liking other tracks more. Number 13. Cheep Cheep Falls. So this track's one immediate flaw is obviously the water, especially the rapids. But ignoring that, I absolutely love the look and theme of this track, with its traditional Japanese theming and the falling autumn leaves. I just love it so much. Like genuinely, this sort of thing is something I'm a sucker for. Not to mention how much fun it is to explore in free roam. I also really like the music for the track as well. So a pretty great track overall. Number 12. Starview Peak. So I was genuinely shocked to find that a lot of people seem to think that this is one of the worst tracks in the game for some reason, because Starview Peak was literally one of my favourite tracks upon release. I absolutely love the design of this track. And sure, there is water here, but it's not as bad as other tracks. Naturally, I also really enjoy exploring the track in free roam. I especially enjoy getting onto the giant rings around the building. Yes, you can in fact get on these. So overall, I love this track. It's a shame I couldn't place it any higher. Number 11. Salty Salty Speedway. Now I was sure some of you were surprised that Salty Salty Speedway is this high up, considering that half the track is water. And yes, while the water isn't particularly fun, it's not the worst. Where this track really shines however, is in free roam. If there's one thing I like more than circuit tracks, it's city tracks. And so being able to freely drive around a Venice style city is really cool. And it's thanks to that this track is as high as it is. Number 10. Whistle Stop Summit. It's kinda hard to describe why I like Whistle Stop Summit. It's just a great track, both in races and free roam. The sheer amount of rails to grind on in this track is pretty cool, and I like the split path near the end where you can go along either the normal bottom path or take the top rail path. Makes things more interesting. So yeah, not much else to it. Number 9. Great Question Block Ruins. I don't think I'm alone in saying that Great Question Block Ruins is a great track. Driving through ancient ruins floating in the sky is really cool, and actually caught me off guard the first time. But if I had to point out any flaws with this track, it's that it doesn't really offer much in terms of free roam. Sure, the parkour to get atop the Great Question Block is cool, but there's not really much else. Number 8. Shy Guy Bazaar. So Shy Guy Bazaar is a track a lot of people were happy to see return, and for good reason. It's a really fun track. But you know what's even better than the track itself? Free roam. Being able to explore the entire bazaar is really cool. Even better is being able to go inside and explore the palace as well. So overall, it's pretty good. Number 7. Airship Fortress. So yet another track that people were excited to see return. Airship Fortress is a really cool track, and that alone would have likely gotten a high place in it. But adding free roam into the equation guaranteed a spot in the top 10. Being able to freely explore both the airship and the fortress is really cool. Shame I couldn't place it any higher. Number 6. DK Spaceport. So DK Spaceport has to be one of the most creative tracks in the entire series, taking heavy inspiration from the original Donkey Kong arcade game. Instead of being a closed circuit, this is a point A to point B up the spaceport, going through various different sections, each with its own gimmick. Meanwhile, exploring the track in free roam is a blast, especially since this is one of the biggest tracks in the game. There's plenty of little spots to find. Though despite all this, it doesn't quite make it into the top 5. Number 5. Bowser's Castle. This might genuinely be one of my favourite versions of Bowser's Castle that we've gotten, right up there with the likes of Wii. I especially like the section where you get a speed boost and jump straight through Bowser's mouth. And naturally, it's pretty good in free roam too, though not as much as others. Number 4. Toad's Factory. So as I'm sure some of you are aware, I loved Mario Kart Wii as a kid, and put a lot of hours into it. So naturally, any track that appeared in that game gets bonus points, and Toad's Factory has always been one of my favourites. And I'm pleased to say that the version of Mario Kart World is just as good as the original, and the ability to freely explore the entire area in free roam makes it even better. So it's unfortunate that it barely missed out on top 3. Number 3. Peach Stadium. So it should be pretty clear by now that I like circuit tracks, and stadium tracks tend to fall into that category for me. So naturally, I really like Peach Stadium. And in case it somehow isn't obvious, I'm talking about the standard Peach Stadium, and not the paperclip from Shell Cup. Anyway, I also really enjoy messing around this track in free roam. Probably doesn't help that this track serves as a sort of central hub for the map in a way. But regardless, while I very much enjoy this track, there's 2 tracks I like more, and it was quite close deciding who came out on top. Number 2. Crown City. Alright, so coming in a very close second place is Crown City. As I've said before, I love city tracks, and Crown City is the city track. Both versions of the track are quite fun, and that includes the combined one in versus races. But what I love most about this track is, as you can probably guess by now, free roam. Being able to freely drive around a large city like this is exactly what I was hoping for from free roam. So naturally, I spend a lot of time here exploring all the nooks and crannies. My only real complaint I can think of is that I wish the city was bigger. Yes, you heard me right, I wish Crown City was bigger. Because despite already being one of, if not the largest track in the game, it stops feeling quite so big once you get used to it. So yeah, fantastic track that only barely lost the top spot, and I'm sure you can guess to who. Number 1. Rainbow Road. Out of all 30 tracks in this game, this rendition of Rainbow Road is what I would consider to be my favourite. I absolutely love this track in pretty much all aspects. The build up, the music, the track design, I just love it. It would be so cool to be able to play this track for the first time again. Something I've said previously about older Rainbow Roads is that they do a great job of giving the impression that this is the grand finale. Because, well, they are. And this Rainbow Road absolutely nails it. arguably better than every other version. I also really like how long the track is. I know not everyone's a fan of really long tracks, but I am. And considering that this is the final track of the game, I think they can get away with it. I love how the track is divided into different sections, each with a different theme to it, like the space station and the water section, which yes, even though I don't like water sections too much, this one gets a pass due to just how visually stunning it looks. Something I find quite funny when doing this ranking is that for as much as I've brought up free roam and how it can affect a track's ranking, the one track that can't be accessed in free roam is the track that sits atop the podium. Well, ain't that something? So overall, I absolutely love this track. Not only is it my favourite track in this game, but without question one of my favourite in the entire series. Still not certain how I'd compare it to my other favourite Rainbow Roads like N64 and especially Wii, but that's for another time. And with that, we've finally gone through and ranked all 30 tracks in Mario Kart World. Now just a reminder that this ranking is entirely my opinion, and you're free to disagree with it. In fact, let me know what you thought down in the comments, and be sure to tell me what some of your favourite tracks in this game are. Also, I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to go and watch my playthrough of Mario Kart World over on my other channel. I'm planning to do a playthrough of Dark Souls 1 over there sometime soon. But that's going to do it from me here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps this channel out. Have a great day everyone, and I'll see you next time. See ya!